All right, folks, welcome back to part 2 of the large group that we're critiquing that were posted on the Facebook page a while back. This is Toby.
And this is Christina.
And we are critiquing those photos from the Digital Photo Rec Flickr group, and we're just going to plow right into this second batch.
Yes. So I really like the contrast in this image, even though it's kind of a flat image. Like, it's not very punchy, you know. The actual colors, like the blacks, aren't pure black. But there's still so much contrast because the shadows are so deep and the flower itself is so yellow and so bright. So I really like that about it. I also like that the leaves in the background are just kind of peeking through, adding some texture in the background. I feel like this space right here is a little bit of dead space that could be filled somehow. But you know, if there was nothing there, then what can you do about it? So there's only so much you can do. But maybe you could crop a little bit, you know, crop this part, and then it would make the frame a little bit more full of leaves in the background. Yeah, and I mean, I like the composition. I like that the flower is just dead center. It's kind of nice. It's a little bit off to the side, like it's not quite completely centered. Like, I know that, you know, you shouldn't beat yourself up if like things aren't super perfect, but you know, we are critiquing, so yeah, so maybe just move it a little bit off to the right, just a teeny tiny bit, and then you've got an awesome picture. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Great. I don't have much to add. You know, usually I'm not a fan of this flatter treatment, this low contrast, but I think it works well here, and I like it. I like the imperfectness of the flower, where you got a little gap over here, and that's not really anything that you did, but it's just that you don't feel like everything everybody photographs has to be perfect all the time, and a little bit of messy is more realistic, and I like that. It's nice. Thank you. This looks like one of those color runs.
Yes.
And the first thing I want to say about this is be careful using your camera near these. There was a story from the Lens Rentals folks.
That's a little sensationalist.
No, it wasn't.
This guy submitted his pictures. Not be careful taking.
Okay, so these
near these places.
Okay. I didn't finish. So these are these fun color runs where you run the 5K and they throw this food starch colored in these bright dyes on you. Photogenic, just so much fun to photograph, I'm sure. But what the lens rental people found out that had rented out gear to a photographer that covered one of these events was this stuff gets inside your lenses. And talk about worrying about dust on your sensor. Is that, you didn't know that's what I was going to say?
No, I didn't.
Yes, so this stuff gets everywhere and is incredibly hard to clean. So people who shoot these for a living usually use waterproof cases, so their camera is sealed off from the outside. So just be careful about that. And obviously, if you're further back, you're shooting with the 50 millimeter at 50 millimeter. You're shooting with a 50 millimeter at 50 millimeter. Sure, let me repeat myself when I sound stupid in the first place. You're, you know, out of the action, but just be careful. So this is cool. And I like that we're really just kind of capturing the tops of these people and their arms up in this kind of color apocalypse. It's a little crooked to me, and I think you could get even a little bit tighter, even though I said stay away. So if you had a longer zoom, this would be a great place to use it. Do you have anything to add, Christina?
I do not. You said it all.
Okay. So, in wrapping up, photogenic, awesome. Be careful with your camera gear. Nitin or Nitin, I think you've done a nice capture here. Straighten your horizon a little bit, and you could get in even a little bit closer as long as your gear was safe. Thank you. Tom's got a cute one of his pooch.
I think the first thing that stands out to me as something that could be done differently is not include as much background as you did. So there's too much of this stuff, which is just really distracting. You really want to focus in on the dog's face. That should be your main focus. So stand a little bit to the right, tilt your camera to the left a little bit, include more of the pants, you know, more over on this side, and frame the dog nicely on the right side of the frame instead of kind of, awkwardly in the middle. Another thing that's a little bit funny about this picture, which I can understand can be a challenge when photographing dogs who aren't always the most, still subjects, is, I'm sure this person was petting the dog to kind of keep it there, maybe petting like good boy. But this hand just looks a little awkward. It just kind of looks chopped off, and it's distracting. And it's intersecting with the back of it, or the top of his head, the hands in the back. So it's not helping the picture. So yeah, try a different perspective, try a different angle. I think the light on the dog is really great. I really like, the little hint of highlights over here. And, the little catch light on his eyes, and his expression is really, really nice. So yeah, so I might just maybe even crop it a little bit, and that might be able to help. But in the future, just try a different perspective, recompose, and tilt your camera a little bit, and you'll be good to go.
Yep, I agree. Cute dog. You're at 33 millimeters. You could be at 55 here, and that would do a lot of the cropping, pre-cropping, not post as in after you took the picture. And I think that would make it a stronger image, but nice picture. Thank you, Tom. Now we got this one from Aaron, who coincidentally won the gift card to Lumoid.com and rented the 50 millimeter f1.8. So we're looking forward to pictures from that lens, Aaron. This was before she rented that, so this was with just her kit lens, 18 to 135, and of her #1 model, Oreo.
Oreo.
I like when I read everything that people could just read on their own.
Yeah.
It's helpful.
Well, sometimes I don't read it, so I'm sure that's the case for a lot of people. Okay, well, I love cats, so I like this picture.
You love cats?
It's a picture
I didn't know that about you.
of a little cat sleeping, and he looks so peaceful. And there's some really nice rim light kind of around Oreo. There's some hot spots right here that I feel like could be either corrected in post, or maybe you could underexpose a little bit to begin with, and then bring the exposure. I keep doing this.
I know.
Bring the exposure back up. I feel like the picture's a little too crowded for me. The composition's just a little, like, he's kind of awkwardly in the middle. So he could be either on the bottom part of the frame, or, I would like to see his other ear as well. I feel like one of his ears is just kind of cropped off, and it doesn't feel like it was, I don't know, maybe it was on purpose, but I just...
Well, I feel like we often say, get close, get tight, get in right in your subject. And I think this is taking that just a little too far, and we could back off just a little bit to give the kitty cat a little bit of context and include the other ear.
Yeah.
Unless maybe they lost it in a horrible accident.
Let's hope that's not the case.
Probably not.
But otherwise, it's a really sweet capture of your cat, which is, every time I try to take a picture of my cat, they immediately realize it, and they don't want to have anything to do with me. But whenever I don't want to have anything to do with them, they're like climbing all over stuff that I'm trying to do. So.
This isn't the kitty cat show. I'll just add that I
just bitter about it.
Just on a lot of pictures tonight, been seeing manual right here, and that makes me really happy.
Yay!
I know that it doesn't feel as easy as some of the other modes sometimes, and there are things that will happen, like you're going to get slightly overexposed. I would say overall exposure of this image I think is pretty good. A black and white cat can be tricky to photograph, and I think it's a good job, but just a little bit hot right here, as Christina said. But thank you all for shooting manual. I think that's great. Thank you, Aaron. Steve has got one of this cow and somebody talking to the cow. All right, I think the colors are nice in this image, and the exposure is good. The barbed wire right in front of the nose is distracting me a little bit, and this is one of those things where I think if you came up a little bit and made this kind of connection that this person and this cow are very close to each other, we already see that, but make it feel like there isn't even a fence there. And it's okay if you can still see the fence below, but it gives it more of a feeling of togetherness, and I think that would make this a stronger image, as this cow is clearly interested in the human, and the human is interested in the cow, and so I think that is a nice moment. And also, I can't almost feels like the nose is sharper than the eyes up here, but what are we at? We're at 5'6" and 135 millimeters. Yeah, so your depth of field out there is getting a little bit on the shallower side, and we can see that certainly with this person who is probably just a foot or two in front of the cow out of focus. But that's great to shoot at 135 because you've compressed these elements, brought them very close together, maybe, so they appear even more closer than they actually are. Come up a little to drop that fence line, and I think we'll have a strong connection.
Yep, you said good things.
Okay. Whoa.
Ooh, this is interesting.
Lawrence.
Upsurge. Okay, well, I really love the composition in this one. I think you really nailed the composition. It's perfect. Horizon line looks straight. The subject is like perfectly framed between the two sides of flowers. Captured the jump where it at the perfect place as well. I don't think I have much more. This almost looks like it could be an ad. I feel like the shadows are just a little bit too dark, so maybe just like lighten them a little bit. But really, I don't know.
In these spots and through here?
No, I was thinking more in these spots up here. Like it looks like
okay.
the shadows look very black. But I think that's just the time of day and what happens at that time of day. So yeah. I don't know. I really love this image. I think there's not really much to do. There's nothing to do, really. I really like it.
I'm distracted by this tree back here. It's a very cool tree, but being centered right below the person jumping distracts me a little bit. I wonder if on another row, if you could have shot without that tree back there. It's being picky, but that's something. Another thing is the intersection of the hand and the flower here.
I was going to talk about
it's minor, but, obviously for somebody jumping, it's not really something that you could be like, hold your hand just a little bit higher. But maybe if you snapped several bursts, if you have one where the hand is a little bit higher, that would be good. But otherwise, I agree with Christina. I think the colors here are great in this moment captured. Hand is a little dark too.
That's what I'm saying.
Similar to the shadows over here. Yeah, so that could be lightened a little bit. And it also has just a little purple. So that could be a little lighter. Thank you, Lawrence. Cool image.
Ooh, this is interesting.
Ruan's Protect Your Castle.
I really like the perspective of this image. I think the perspective is cool. I think either, it was just tall enough that you could shoot from a low enough perspective, or you got down low and shot it from a really low perspective. I don't have anything to add. I mean, the composition is like spot on. The clouds even add to like this would have been dead space, but it's not, because the clouds add a lot of texture and it helps the composition. And he's framed between these two things, or his head is, and not intersecting with anything weird. I guess this could be out of focus a little bit more, but I don't know. I think it works really well the way it is. And so you did shoot at 3.5, so I want to say,
that's as wide as you could. That's as fast as you could shoot.
Right. No. I thought this was shot at it's even smaller than that. Shutter speed. Aperture. No, I think it's great.
Yep.
Nice job, Ron.
What do you think about framing him in this area over here? Shifting your perspective enough so that the building comes up and over his head?
No. I think it looks great the way it is.
I think it's good. Maybe a little crooked. The right hand side.
Yes.
The right hand side is a little higher than the left.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I agree with all of what Christina said, and I think it's great. You bring up shadows a little bit to bring up this side of his face. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Little Dano, 50.
I think it's interesting that the foreground looks pretty bright, but then everything else looks so dark right behind it.
This looks like there was a fair amount of post-processing here. to some degree, because yes, I agree that we have a much brighter foreground. Do you want to continue, or do you want me to roll on?
You should roll on.
I think this is cool. This kind of reminds me of those Midwest storm photos, and except that we don't really have a storm, more of just kind of cool clouds and a cool sunset. The speed limit sign is really bothering me because I don't think that's the subject, but it has a fairly prominent point in this picture.
Really?
Yeah. You think it's a subject, or you don't think
I
it bothers
think it's part of the story.
Okay. I'll buy that it's part of the story, but if it is, then I want you to get over on the road or close to the road and shoot down the road. Because then, here we go. Speed limit sign, looking down the road ahead. That says something to me.
I don't know.
But over here, the road plays a part as just kind of a cursory part of this composition, as kind of a separating line between this foreground and the sunset in the background, and we don't need to see a speed limit sign.
I see what you're saying, but at the same time, I feel like there are so many pictures from the middle of the road, dead center.
I don't think it has to be. I don't think it has to be dead center, but I think it has to be.
I think if you had the road touching the bottom of the frame, being the foreground, it's really challenging to not make it the center and still get a really strong photo. Because then it would just become, I feel like there would be too many really strong shapes that would kind of take your eye away from everything else. And then you definitely couldn't get the sunset in the background. So, I don't know. I don't think that going up to the road is necessarily a good thing.
Okay. What about shifting 10, 15 feet to the right and shooting basically the same perspective but without the speed sign?
But then I would feel like, well, one, I feel like the speed sign kind of balances out all of the darkness over here. This part feels really heavy to me because of the clouds, and there's not as many clouds as over here, and there's no flowers over here. So I feel like this balances out all of this. So I think that it should stay there. I don't think that it shouldn't be there. Okay. I don't think it's distracting at all.
Okay. Anything else to add?
Nope.
Okay. Good. I think this is a cool image, but you all know my opinion on the speed limit sign. Stacy's got this one of Minnie Love.
This is sweet. So I don't really have a whole lot to say about this image. I think that what was captured is a really sweet moment between two animals, and that's what takes focus, and that's what should take focus. There's not a whole lot of distracting elements. I don't know that not cutting off the bottom of the legs of the horses would really aid this picture, make it look better at all. I don't think it would necessarily. So I don't know. I think it's nice the way it is. What do you think?
I think I like it. I think the exposure is nice. This is a sweet moment. I think you could get a little closer. You're shooting at 55, so you zoomed as much as you could. If you could have taken a step or two closer and just framed a little bit, a little bit less of this horse on the right. We'll call him Tan Fuzzy. And but really that's it. The only other thing I'll mention is that it has to do with shutter speed priority mode in the camera, which really is not my favorite mode. There's nothing wrong with it per se, but it's not really one you should use unless you're trying to stop action and you're going to be shooting in variable condition, but you have to hit a certain shutter speed to always stop that action. In your general everyday photography, I think aperture priority or manual, as we're very fond of, because really you want to kind of control your depth of field. And in this case, you could have shot at 5.6 instead of 6.3, but honestly, that probably would have made very little difference in here.
There's not a whole lot of distracting elements.
No, there really aren't. Just a little bit tighter. Crop in just a little bit, I think. So horse to horse. But otherwise, I think it's a nice image. Thank you, Stacy. James has wood anemones. Anemones.
So this is a really nice picture of these flowers. I want to say that the cutting off this flower and this flower and this flower right here is a little bit distracting. It pulls my eye away from these. The exposure is really nice. I like that the aperture that you chose because you can still see the shapes of the leaves in the background, but they're not super distracting. I might just frame it a little bit differently. Like I might either include these or take these out like all together. So maybe push them down with your hand just a little bit without breaking them, or just find a slightly different composition. I like where they're framed. I like that this one, which seems to be the one that takes the main focus, is on the right side of the frame. So the composition is nice and balanced, or it feels nice and balanced, except for, these guys over here. But, similarly to the yellow flower picture that we critiqued previously, there's lots of really nice textures and, kind of framing the flowers. And yeah, it's a very nice picture. That's all I have to say.
Okay. I actually can't quite tell if this right-hand flower or this center left-facing flower is the subject. This feels a tiny bit sharper to me, and maybe I'm crazy.
It's so peeping.
Well, that's what we're doing. That's what we're paid. Wait, no, it's paying us. One other suggestion is fast shutter speed. I think you're in some kind of automatic mode here with the EOS M. Tell me how you like the EOS M, James. I'm really hoping they come out with a version 2 with even faster focus because I do love that size. 640th of a second, you could have dropped that shutter speed a little bit, which would allow you to drop your ISO a little bit. We're getting a little bit of grainy noise back here. It's not to the point where it's bad or even distracting, but you could have gotten a slightly cleaner image with a little bit less ISO. And then just kind of help me figure out either in your framing or in your aperture, and that's another thing, you could have opened up your aperture a little bit as well. I think would still have captured the leaves, which Christina mentioned, I think is a strong point, but then maybe have isolated your subject just a tiny bit more. But I think this is a really nice shot, and the exposure is dead on, the colors are nice. Thank you, James. The last one we've got tonight is from Cheryl, and Cheryl, you mentioned before having some issues uploading to Facebook, so I'm not sure why we're getting such a small size here. I'd like to see a much larger size because it's kind of hard to see, but it looks a little sharpish, like over sharpened, a little pixelated, and I'm not getting any useful information. Oh, quality 60%. So I think you exported this from Photoshop at a lower quality than you should have. Go for 80, 90, somewhere in that general vicinity. Basically, you see very little difference between 80 and 90. I think the exposure, so let's comment on what we can. So we think it's downsampled a little bit too much. We've lost some info in it, and that's made the picture a little less strong. This trash can right here, I think we could have walked a little bit closer and really just kind of framed this tree in between these two light poles. I think that would have been a nice focus, but I think your exposure is spot on, and I know you've been doing manual focus, and I think you've really started to nail that. That looks good. This does make me want to take a stroll in New York City because it's a fun place to be in the springtime.
Yep. And I think, was this the only tree that was blooming? Because if there were other trees that were blooming, it might just be a better shot to shoot from the middle of the walkway and kind of get both sides of it. I know, and Toby's looking at me smiling because he's probably thinking, yeah, well, you said not to do that with the other picture. Well, as you can see, she's on the road, or not on the road, but on the path, and she's kind of in the middle of it. She's standing, on it, and as you can see, it's pretty challenging to get, like this becomes a really big distracting shape that doesn't really add anything, but it's kind of awkward, like where do you put it, you know what I mean? Yep. So when you are here, when you have this type of situation, it is better off. And when you have so many distracting elements also, like these things can quickly become distracting elements. Yeah, these other trees that aren't blooming and they're kind of ugly can become distracting elements. So I don't know. I that's what I'm saying. I don't know what the other perspective would look like. I don't know if shooting dead on straight from the center and getting both either side of the path would be better. But if there are other trees, that might be a good choice. Also, just I feel like the cutting off the top of the tree is a little bit distracting. You could have moved the camera up just a touch. But yeah, that's all.
Okay. Just for the record, I was smiling at you because you sound like you're about to fall asleep.
I'm pretty tired.
Okay.
Full disclosure.
Thank you for staying up. All right, folks. That was our last one. Thank you to, whoopsie, how do we end up there? Thank you all to everybody who submitted, who watched. We appreciate the comments down below, what you think about some of the images, especially when we go back and forth, agree with one of us or the other. It's always fun to read these comments and then say, everybody thought what I said was right. That's actually not what we do. But it's just, we love hearing your opinion as well. If you'd like to see your image critiqued and you haven't yet, put it in the Digital Photo Rec group. If you have and it still hasn't been critiqued, well, we'll work on that. We got everybody who posted on Facebook in the last 2 weeks, so that's good. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good night.
Good night.